Long ago, in a quiet little village embraced by tall mountains, there lived a young man named Marco. He was 24, energetic, yet troubled. Although life in the village was peaceful, Marco's mind was anything but calm. Thoughts never stopped swirling inside him. Endless worries, memories, and what-ifs that exhausted him day and night. When he worked, his mind wandered. When he rested, his thoughts refused to let him sleep. The more he tried to control them, the louder they became, like waves crashing in a restless sea. He often thought about mistakes from his past and feared what the future might bring. Because of this, he forgot how to smile. His life felt heavy, and every morning seemed like a burden he didn't know how to carry. One afternoon, while sitting by the village well, Marco overheard some travelers talking. They spoke about a distant place hidden deep among the hills where an old wise man lived. They said that long ago, he had been a great psychologist in the city. Many people had gone to him for guidance, and he had helped them find peace and happiness in their lives. But when he grew older, he left behind the noise of the city and chose a quiet home near nature. Now people visited him from faraway places, hoping to receive his wisdom. Those words planted a seed in Marco's heart. For the first time in months, he felt a spark of hope. Maybe this man could help him understand his mind. Maybe he could find the calm he had been searching for all his life. That night, Marco couldn't sleep. He imagined meeting the wise man, hearing his voice, and finally learning how to quiet the storm inside his head. The next morning, with only a small bag and a determined heart, Marco began his journey toward the hills. The path was long and winding. Days passed as he crossed rocky valleys and dense forests. Sometimes he slept under the stars, listening to the whisper of the wind through the trees. His body grew tired, but his heart kept pushing him forward. He believed that once he met the old man, his restless thoughts would finally find peace. After many days, Marco finally reached the hill village. It was small and surrounded by green fields and tall pine trees. The air smelled fresh, and the sound of birds filled the sky. At the edge of the village stood a modest house covered with vines and flowers. On the porch sat the old man, dressed simply, with eyes closed as if he were listening to the wind itself. His face looked calm, and there was a gentle smile resting on his lips. Marco stepped closer and spoke softly, afraid to disturb the silence. He said that his heart was troubled, and his mind never stopped racing. He begged the old man to help him find peace. The wise man slowly opened his eyes, which were bright yet calm, and nodded. He stood up and said in a quiet voice that if Marco truly wanted peace, he must first complete a small task. The old man went inside and returned with a glass of water, filled right to the brim. Not a single drop could move without spilling over. He handed the glass to Marco and said that he must walk to the far end of the village and return without letting even one drop fall. Marco looked at the glass, confused. He didn't understand how such a task could bring peace, but he agreed. Holding the glass carefully, he began to walk. The road through the village was narrow, crowded with people going about their day. Children ran and laughed, shopkeepers called out prices, and dogs barked from the corners. But Marco didn't pay attention to any of it. His eyes stayed fixed on the glass of water. Each step was careful, slow, and full of attention. He breathed quietly, afraid even his breath might shake the glass. The journey felt long, but finally he returned to the old man without spilling a single drop. Marco smiled proudly and said that he had completed the task. The old man nodded, pleased, and then asked if Marco had noticed the children playing or heard the dogs barking. Marco frowned and said he hadn't seen or heard anything at all. His focus had been only on the glass of water. The old man's smile grew softer. He looked at Marco and said, "That, my son, is the lesson you came here to learn. Peace is not something you can chase in the world outside. It is something you must find within yourself. When your mind is focused on this moment, just as your mind was focused on that glass, there is no space left for fear or regret. You were not thinking about your past mistakes, nor were you worrying about the future. You were fully present. That is where peace lives." Those words struck Marco like sunlight breaking through clouds. He suddenly understood what the wise man meant. His whole life he had been lost between yesterday and tomorrow, forgetting to live in today. His mind had been like an open door where every thought and memory entered freely. But when he focused only on the present, on each careful step and the water he held, the storm of thoughts disappeared. For the first time, Marco felt a deep calm inside his heart. He realized that peace was never missing. It had only been hidden under his worries. The more he chased peace outside, the further away it went. But when he turned inward and stayed in the present, peace naturally arose. He bowed his head before the old man and thanked him with tears in his eyes. The old man simply smiled and said that real wisdom is not in knowing everything, but in learning how to be still. Then he returned to his seat on the porch, closing his eyes once more. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, golden light covered the village. Birds were flying home and the air turned cool. Marco began walking back down the hill, but the man who descended was no longer the same one who had arrived full of confusion. His steps were lighter, his heart was steady, and a quiet smile rested on his face. The mountains that once looked tall and far away now seemed friendly and calm, just like his mind. Every sound, the chirping of crickets, the rustle of leaves, the whisper of the wind, felt like music. Marco finally understood that peace is not about silence outside. It's about silence within. From that day on, Marco lived differently. Whenever his thoughts began to wander into the past or rush toward the future, he would remember the glass of water. He would breathe slowly, focus on what was before him, and bring his mind back to the present. The world around him hadn't changed, but his way of seeing it had. The same roads, the same people, the same noises, and yet everything felt new, calm, and full of life. And so, the restless young man who once searched the world for peace learned that the answer had always been waiting quietly inside him. The hills, the journey, and the wise old man were only guides that led him back to himself. If you found meaning in Marco's story, share it with those who might also be searching for calm. Every heart deserves peace, and sometimes all it takes is learning how to live in this very moment, where life truly happens, where peace quietly waits.